July 1999. It was summer, and I hadn't watched Channel 21 for a while, until one day when I slept over at my friend's house. I decided to check it out again. My friend had gotten a TV in his room for his 6th birthday, so we stayed up very late. For us, 9:30 was very late, and watched TV. That's when I remembered Channel 21, and brought it up to my friend. We decided to see if it was on, and to our surprise, it was. They must have changed the broadcasting times. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 23. This episode was irritating for my friend and I, mainly because it had swearing. However, now when I think of this episode, I realize something was definitely wrong when it was filmed. The episode started with the camera on its side, while it was facing Mr. Bear, who was walking upstairs to the cellar door. The camera then blacked out for a second, before fading in. Back upright, and facing Mr. Bear, there was also another kid talking to him, but this kid looked about 11 or 12. He was talking to Mr. Bear for a while, but I couldn't hear well, again with the crappy camcorder, until the kid started raising his voice. The kid was saying how it was late, and his sister had to go home. You could also hear more voices in the background. I remember Mr. Bear clearly saying,
"Get the fuck out. You're not invited,"
with a deep voice muffled in his bear mask. I remember my friend and I looked at each other and laughed at the mention of the forbidden F word. But the episode got weirder. The kid began climbing the stairs before turning around and saying how he was going to call the police. Mr. Bear began breaking into a run towards the kid, who started screaming and running as well. The camera then cut out, and that was the end of the episode. The channel then turned to static shortly after. Booby, Episode 42. Playing with Scissors. One rainy afternoon, I was bored, so I decided to watch Channel 21. When I started watching some show about a guy sitting in an armchair with just finishing. I forget what it was about, though. When I first saw this episode, I thought it was for teenagers because it had blood in it, and it was very gross. When the police told me everything, I now know who the blood belonged to. The episode showed Booby in another hand with a ribbon around the pinky finger. Booby's girlfriend. Booby was holding scissors and hopping around back and forth, while his girlfriend slowly swung around aimlessly. Another hand shot into the scene. His hand was smaller, though, and was jerking around violently, as if someone was under the table forcing the hand. And later I found out that this was the case. "Scissors are very dangerous, kids, so hold them safely," Booby said to the camera. I noticed I could also hear muffled screams, but I wasn't sure where it was coming from because of the bad sound quality. Booby's girlfriend grabbed the smaller hand, which was thrashing about, and Booby went at it with the scissors. He started at the thumb. He opened the scissors wide and clasped them onto the thumb. Blood began oozing out, and the muffled screams were now very loud. My 5-year-old self was very grossed out, and that's when I decided maybe Booby was a show meant for teenagers or grown-ups. Then the scissors got to the bone. A horrible crunching noise was heard, and that's when I turned the TV off. I never discussed it with my dad, because I feared he would limit my TV time. August 1999. I didn't want to watch Channel 21 after that Booby episode. In August, I grew more curious to see Mr. Bear's Cellar for some reason, though. The last episode I saw of Mr. Bear was weird, and it had swearing, which also made me think the show was meant for teenagers. Nonetheless, I flipped to Channel 21 when my dad was busy. Mr. Bear's Cellar, Episode 28. Apparently this episode had been playing the entire month of August. It was studied a lot by the police. The entire episode was just Mr. Bear sitting in a chair talking to the audience. "Hello, kids! Do you want to visit my cellar? If you do, please write me a letter at this address." The screen then switched to a white screen with multicolored letters reading the address, and that was what remained for the rest of the episode. And guess what I actually did? I sent Mr. Bear, or that sick bastard who betrayed him, a letter. I did it out of curiosity mostly. My dad was okay with it because he thought it was a legit kid show. But then again, he never saw any of what was on Channel 21. So I wrote a letter using my best writing possible. I think I just said how I wanted to meet Mr. Bear and if the booby also lived in the cellar. So my dad sent a letter to the address Mr. Bear said on the show. It stayed on all day anyways for some reason. It took about a week to get a response, which I was surprised I did. I still have the letter I received, August 15th, 1999. The letter read, Dear Elliot, thank you ever so much for the letter. I would love to have you in my cellar. We play games, watch movies, go fire camping in the middle of the woods. And yes, Booby does live in my cellar. He is a good friend of mine. Come to my house at... Please cut out this address. Caledon, Ontario, Canada. I look very forward to having fun with you. Love, Mr. Bear. I cannot believe my dad never found this sketchy, because he actually took me to the house. And then that's when the police became involved. Those endless questions, those pictures of terrified kids, the woods. It brings me to why I'm writing this blog. That Psycho and his friends did some fucked up shit back then, and now it seems he's trying to get in contact with me again. The entire police thing is coming back. That has brought 1999 back to me. Over a decade later, it is happening again. Update. September 21st, 2011. People have been emailing me, asking me what happened in 1999. I will get to that. Those weird TV shows I was watching apparently were meant to attract kids to Mr. Bear's house. What Mr. Bear did shocked the entire town. My dad actually drove me to Caledon, along with the address Mr. Bear left on the letter. The house was actually in the outskirts of the town, in the open farmland. I still remember that house. It looked like an old farmhouse that looked to have been built in the early 1900s. The windows were all boarded up, and the house looked in a state of disrepair. As we walked up to the house, I remember my dad checking the address over and over again and looking at the house in disbelief. Then the door opened. I expected Mr. Bear to be at the door, but I was surprised to see a police officer emerge from the creaking doorway. The officer began talking to my dad, while I quickly asked if that was Mr. Bear's house. The officer's face cringed slightly and muttered, "Oh God," or something like that. He started talking quietly to my dad, so I couldn't hear, although my dad told me to go to the car anyways, and then we just went home. My dad was quiet the whole way home. I felt something strange had happened. My dad never told me what happened for a while. I forgot about it anyways, too. Channel 21 no longer came on, and when I asked about it, my dad would just not acknowledge its existence. I think it was when I was 13 where I learned the truth. I remember Channel 21 one day and asked my dad about it. I guess he finally decided I should hear the truth. Caledon Local 21 was a local TV channel that ran from October 1997 to August 1999 in the Peel region of Ontario. The entire channel was made from a house in Caledon, the one I visited, and run by a man who was not really known by anyone in the town. The channel was only available to older TVs because the signal was one only picked up by rabbit ears, weaker frequency. The man created all the shows on the channel, all of which were kids shows. His hand was Booby, he was Mr. Bear, and he was the mysterious cameraman. The real reason he created the channel was more disturbing than what was originally thought. As you might have already guessed, he kidnapped kids and held them in a cellar. But while most people thought he was a serial child molester, he really wanted to use the kids for another purpose.